You join us in race control here in Alicante as leg 9 moves to the closing stages. We've got 7 teams out on the water, but who will be the first boat across the line is anyone's guess at this moment. We're going to be hearing from the sailors. We're going to be taking a look at the tide, which is going to play a very important factor. Plus, having a look at those last few strategic moves that are on offer and the current conditions and the positions. But before we do that, let's check in with Dongfeng Race Team. Charles Cordrellia dialed into us earlier while the drone was in the air to give us an update on the current racing situation.
Our plan is, I think we are going to try to go north of the bay if we are early, because we think it will be better than the south, but it's quite tricky and it really depends on the timing. We'll arrive in the bay. If we are late, the south can be good. If we are a bit early, we have to go north, I think. But yeah, I'm afraid it's going to be very complicated for the last 30 miles. And we still hope to come back on Brunel and Axo. It will be good. Huh? So we dream about a Newport finish, but this time we will be the guy coming back, not the guy who lost everything.
Well, we've got the drone in the air now. We'll be able to get a little bit of a look at what the breeze is doing around you. I mean, from the off, it looks pretty patchy.
Yeah, the breeze is quite patchy. We have 4 knots of wind coming from north, which is a new direction, which is good because the transition was easy, but the wind is quite light and we have no idea what is the wind for the other one. We think there is a bit more wind ahead of us, so maybe the leader could get it before us, but we also think we had a good transition. So I don't know. Let's hope we manage to come back and keep the other one far away.
Well, let's talk about the significance of leg 9, because at the moment, the way that the points will work out, you look set to retake the overall lead, but you're also close enough to potentially take over a few more boats, maybe even take the leg win.
That's our dream, to have a leg win, or revenge from Newport. But yeah, Axo and Brunel sailed very well since the start, but now they are fighting together. Maybe in this case, sometimes you do mistake because you don't realize your plane because you are controlling the other one, and you can forget a boat which is a bit far away. But they have a good lead, and but looking at the finishing in the bay. This lean is maybe nothing, and same for the guy on your back. They are not so far away, especially Vestas. And everybody can come back because there will be no wind at one moment in the bay and a lot of currents against us. So the situation probably in the advantage of the back of the fleet. So let's hope just enough for you and not enough for the other one.
We're still rolling. Okay. Okay, I'll roll. I'll land it behind Stu then. All right, all good.
The view from onboard Dongfeng Race Team as the drone launched, flies around the boat, and then comes down. But as we were watching that interview, Conrad, you picked out a little bit of a line. I wonder whether we can hear that key line again.
Yeah, the breeze is quite patchy. We have 4 knots of wind coming from north, which is a new direction, which is good.
Okay, so northerly breeze and a new breeze. Talk us through it.
Well, first off, just 4 knots. It was a little bit brutal out there, but it was the new wind. And so they were the first boat to get the new wind from the north, and that allowed them to sort of punch out a little relative to the leaders. And so that sort of brought them back into frame and has made them a threat to the front 2 for the overall win in this leg.
Okay, well, let's take a look now at the live positions, because as we were saying, you know, this new northerly breeze sweeping across the fleet, well, sweeping across most of the fleet. Unfortunately, Sun Hunkai's Scallywag not yet into that new breeze, but no real surprises to that. 199 nautical miles behind the current leaders that are Team Brunel. Going into those boats that have reached the new northerly wind, well, it's turned the tide on plastic in 6th place. Just ahead of them, it's our current overall race leaders, Mafre, but not for much longer, unfortunately. Vestas, 11th Hour Racing, they're in 4th place, and a tight pack towards the front with Dongfeng Race Team in 3rd. Then Team Axonabel in second place, and Simeon Team Point, if he looks ahead, only 0.7 nautical miles away, will be able to see Team Brunel just in front. So you cannot rule out Dongfeng Race Team from this point. You cannot rule out Vestas 11th Hour Racing either with this breeze. But more than that, the tide's going to come into play. That's going to be a big factor.
Yeah, absolutely. That the Bristol Channel leading into Cardiff is notorious for scooping up a lot of current. It's got the second highest tidal rise and fall in the world, second only to the Bay of Fundy in Nova Scotia, and that creates current. So the rise and fall creates current, and this is what it could be looking like a little bit later on as the boats are heading in there. You've got 3, 4, potentially 5 knots of current whooshing back out, and that is going to compress the fleet, particularly the leaders, and that's bringing Dongfeng Race Team and Vestas 11th Hour Racing back into the frame.
And of course, this is something that the sailors know only too well as a major factor here in Cardiff. Phil Harmer on board Vestas 11th Hour Racing, and he was talking to us a moment ago already about the discussions happening on board about the tide.
Yeah, I mean, the tide and the lack of wind is certainly going to play its role in the finish of this leg. I mean, it's certainly, hopefully, looking to be a bit of a replay of Newport, which ended up quite good for us. So hopefully we can channel some of our energy and local knowledge from there and use it here in Cardiff to sneak past the Dongfeng again.
And this won't be a surprise for you as sailors. You'll know that when Cardiff was announced as the finish of this leg, that this was going to be a skill that you're going to need.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's a very tidal part of the world. I think the tides are 10 or 12 metres, so it's a lot of water moving in and out on a daily basis. So hopefully we can get there at the right time of day and get the tide going in instead of out. Otherwise, it could be a lot of anchoring and waiting for some wind and waiting for the tide to turn, which can be pretty expensive in a fleet like this. Have you had a chance to check the tidal times yourself? Do you know with the rough ETA whether it's going to be helping or hindering? I did overhear Sci-Fi saying with Charlie that it's looking like it's going to be going in with us at the moment. So as long as we can stay on pace, we should be okay with the tide, hopefully. Phil Harmer on board Vestas 11th Hour Racing, and just look at the conditions that they were racing in before that new northerly breeze came in. This was how light it was. And Conrad, when you're in the back of your mind, you're thinking about the tide, and as Phil was saying there, strong current at that. This has got to be agonizing progress. Particularly because you've got the added stress of those tidal gates. That's what we call in ocean racing the moment that the tide swaps from flowing in to flowing out. And so it's an absolutely critical timing that you need to hit. And so if you miss it by an inch, well, it's almost like you missed it by a mile, because 1 minute can turn into 6 hours. Okay, well, Vestas 11th Hour Racing, they seem to have a good plan about what's coming up with the tide. They've certainly made their plans. We are not going to be able to rule them out here at all. Dongfeng Race Team, they're a little way ahead of them, but there is still very much a battle for first between two boats right now, Team Brunel and Team Axonabel. And just before we came on air, I spoke with navigator Jules Salter, and well, he sent us a little bit of an update about this match racing starting to develop.
Yeah, so we're just approaching this low pressure, which is sat in the Celtic Sea, and it's creating a few differences in wind speed, so just trying to pick the right sail. We did sail into quite a light spot of 7 knots. Brunel sailed right up to us, so we're just trying to defend our lead, which is very slim at the moment, but just keep working. Still with 350 miles to go, you probably don't want to get too involved in a straight match race, because you end up often in that situation sailing yourself back to where they are, but also you don't just want to give them free rein to sail past. So just trying to balance batching him and staying sort of with him or minimising the risk, but also sailing the plan to try and get there as quickly as possible.
Team Axonabel not wanting to get drawn into a match race, but how many options do they have? I mean, take a look at the conditions that they were racing in just a few moments ago. I mean, in this breeze, you don't really have the opportunity to react to whatever the opposition is doing. No, a match race is particularly dangerous because two boats that start mucking around with each other can actually slow both boats down, leaving open the opportunity that Dongfeng Race Team, out there on their own to the north, could just sail past them. But
that was in the lighter conditions. Now that the northerly wind has filled in a little bit, it's almost more dangerous because they've got more speed, as we saw just in that interview, more wind, and they can actually start to play.
Well, play they need to because Team Brunel are still out in front, but it's not by much. And this is going to be a nail-biting finish for fans of Team Axel Nobel, the Sailors, and of course the Shaw team as well, waiting for them in Cardiff. And we spoke to team manager Gilles Jory about how the nerves were holding up on a leg that's, well, potentially going to be a great performance.
Exactly. I think that's the main challenge. Since we left Newport, we knew that we need to succeed and to perform in this leg. And clearly the message was well understood on board, but not only on board, everywhere. And for us, the main point is to beat Brunel in the coming hours on the finishing line.
When it gets pretty tight like this, and there's a lot riding on these last few hours, in the team, do you discuss what's at stake, or does everyone just eyes down, concentrate on your jobs?
No. We keep focusing on the tracker, clearly. We discuss, we do all the scenario. And we try to be with our team at sea and to support them. But of course, we cannot bring any message, but just some good vibes.
And of course, leg 9 has been pretty good for you, not just in terms of a result, but also breaking the 24-hour record.
Yes, absolutely. So last Tuesday morning, I sent an email internally saying, be on standby because the next 24 hours will be quite brutal and fast. And, you know, there is a part of risk management, and I think we had our down in leg 3 when we damaged the track on the mast. But clearly, if we are not pushing hard on this leg 9 from Newport to Cardiff, it was over. So they decided to take more risk and clearly pay off because we beat a couple of times the records with some other teams. But luckily, or good enough for having the best coverage with 602 nautical miles in 24 hours, which is quite a good achievement, even more than that. And in any case, we will celebrate that tonight on the pontoon.
And if you could talk to your boat out in the water, what advice would you give them for this final short push to the finish?
I've done it, and I just remind them my last words on the pontoon in Newport. And that's it. And it's a private wording, so I won't repeat it. But clearly, they know that if we want to succeed in The Hague on the podium, we need to perform on this leg.
We need to perform on this leg. Pretty clear instructions. And what would a strong performance mean for Team Axel Nobel if they were able to be the first boat across the finish line, getting the bonus point for the win? Well, let's take a look at the projected scores. This is what the scoreboard would look like if Team Axel Nobel finished first. Dongfeng Race Team, as we've already discussed, they're looking strong. They are going to be our new overall race leader unless something dramatic happens. Mafre are going to knock down into second place. But Team Brunel in third, 54 points. Team Axel Nobel, if they claim this race, suddenly they're only 3 points away from the podium.
And this is where this team wanted to be, that they declared, they were the first boat to declare their entry in this edition of the race. They put together a competitive team. They struggled early on, and sort of now this is their sort of rite of passage back towards the podium, where they've always wanted to be. So I think that this would be clearly a fantastic result for the team and great for the race, because it would be super tight.
So Team Axel Nobel, if they take leg 9, will be very, very close to the podium with 2 legs to remain. But in order to do that, this is the miles that they have to get down. Between them in second place and Team Brunel in first, it is 0.7 nautical miles. The other Dutch boat blocking their path to the finish line. Team Brunel, of course, will be desperate to hold on here in the lead and take it all the way to the finish line. Why? Because of this. Let's see what happens if Team Brunel and Bauer Becking were able to take that bonus point for the win. Well, in that case, Dongfeng Race Team, of course, still being first, Mafre being second, but look at the points difference. Team Brunel in third. Now, Team Axel Nobel, they are not close enough to be a real threat at all. But Team Brunel, I mean, Bauer Becking, he's only 3 points away now from leading the Volvo Ocean Race, just to 0.7 of a nautical mile, being so crucial.
It is absolutely crucial, and I cannot overstate just how tricky and variable these last few hours are going to be. That we've got sort of gusty, shifty conditions. There are hills, there's local effect. The wind is going to get bent in the River 7 as it blows out into the Bristol Channel. So lots of vagaries going on in the wind, but also in the tide as well. Remember that these boats are going to run into a wall of outward flowing tide, and just a small variation north to south, east to west in the positioning within that could absolutely turn this race on its end.
For the 2 Dutch teams, Half a nautical mile is going to make all the difference about what they can hope to achieve with those last 2 legs. And what about Dongfeng Race Team? What about Mafre? Well, at the moment, our current overall race leaders, the Spanish boat, they are not having a great race right now. And the crew on board, well, they know what's at stake. Rob Greenhouse has been counting the points.
Yeah, we're near the end of this transatlantic now, and, you know, we're sitting in 5th. Vesta's not far away in 4th, so we're obviously doing everything we can to try to catch him. Pretty unlikely, well, probably pretty unlikely we're going to catch him, but every point counts, so we'll keep working till the end. Yeah, current standings are, obviously we're hoping Axel Noble will win. Currently we'll drop to 2nd overall. Dongfeng will be 2 points ahead of us. Brunel will be about 5 behind us. So yeah, I mean, we lose our overall lead, but it's all still to play for, 2 legs to go. 2 points in it is really nothing. Obviously a 2-point cushion would be much nicer, but yeah, it just means the last 2 shorter inshore type legs are going to be all on.
Rob Greenhouse on board Mafre putting a bit of a brave face on what's going on right now on the racecourse, because they are down in 5th place. Their main rival for the majority of this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race has been Dongfeng Race Team. They are currently in 3rd place, but it might not stop there. Charles Codrelia could easily go past Team Brunel and Team Axel if this finish is going to be anything like what's predicted with the tide. And what would a win be like for the Chinese team? Well, let's take a look at how the overall points look if Dongfeng Race Team get to be the first boat to cross the finish line in Cardiff, because with all those extra points, suddenly things look very different indeed. Dongfeng Race Team would remain in 1st place, being our new overall race leader, but 6 points clear of Mafre. With 2 legs remaining, none of them double points. That's huge.
It would be a big ask. It would be a huge ask, and particularly because in order to get back to an equal fighting position for the last leg from Gothenburg into The Hague, basically Mafre would need to win the leg and Dongfeng would have to lose it.
And what a difference we are talking about here in terms of the performance of the boats. If you remember, all the way back at the beginning of the race, it was Mafre, the Spanish team, that were the early pace setters, really setting the bar and setting it high. Dongfeng Race Team were doing well. Brunel, I mean, they weren't really on our radar at all. And to help illustrate this, take a little look at this graphic that we've put together here, just outlining how much this edition of the race has changed. So since the start, I mean, if we go back and we take a look at Mafre on some of the earlier legs here, they've performed pretty strong at the beginning. I mean, as we say, very much the boat that were quick, the boat that were getting the numbers early on. In fact, the first few legs, 2nd, 2 first. Then in leg 4, things started to unravel a little bit. They showed their weakness. 6, 7, not good as well. Leg 8, they won it, but we can be a little honest here. That was a bit of a fluke in the last minute.
Well, they had this incredible come from behind victory, and they fought like dogs for that for that victory, and hats off to them. But remember, they were buried for so much of that leg, so it wasn't really a strong leg for them at all, and it was actually sort of more indicative of those lower positions that we've been seeing for them lately.
Okay, well, let's contrast that now with Dongfeng Race Team and see how their results have been. Now, they haven't actually got a leg win yet. They haven't scored better than a 2nd, but contrast that, they haven't finished worse than a 4th. Nearly all of their results on the podium, very consistent, very solid.
Yeah, and it's incredible that they're looking to retake the lead here, almost regardless of what happens out there between whether they take the win or 2nd or 3rd place right now, because they have not won a leg yet, which means that they don't have bonus points. Now, we often say in sailing that consistency is absolutely key. You just need to stay near or there or thereabouts. But that was also the tactic of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, that they were very conservative in the way that they put their team together out on the racecourse. They won the leg overall, but for this edition, we added extra bonus points for the win. So we were trying to sort of extract the sort of flamboyant victories and really incentivize that. But so it's astonishing that they're going to retake the lead without having won a leg so far.
Okay, well, Mafre we were talking about earlier on, and for good reason, as we've shown. One team that we weren't talking about was Team Brunel. And take a look at their results now. In the first few legs, they really struggled to find any pace at all. It was a little bit heartbreaking for the fans. But then, leg 7, with that fantastic win in the Southern Ocean, they seem to come from nowhere, narrowly missing out on the win at leg 8. Now, currently on leg 9, they're looking very strong as well.
That's right. It's a tight lead, but they've got the lead at the moment, and they're looking great. And you know, if you can imagine being a stockbroker right now, then you would sell Mapfre and you would buy Team Brunel because they are the hot stock at the moment.
Very much hot stock, but of course, leg 9 is not over. Will it be Team Brunel who get this leg win? Will it be Team Axel Nobel, Dongfeng Race Team, Vestas 11th Hour Racing? I mean, we saw it all in Newport. So, Conrad, the last roll of the dice, shall we say, the last little test for these sailors. Looking ahead, what's the challenges still remaining?
Well, first up is the fact that they have 2 cycles of the tide in and out in the Bristol Channel. So let's have a look at what that looks like with the routing that as they sort of charge their way into the final miles, this is where they are, this is where they're going. So if they're sailing upwind on port and then basically burying themselves into the funnel, which is Cardiff, in the Bristol Channel leading to Cardiff. And this moment here is crucial, and that's why I've paused it, because that's around midnight, 1 a.m. UTC. Now, this is going to be slack tide because where the current goes from flowing out to flowing back in. So all of the time from now, where they are now to here, the boats will be compressing because we're going to be slowing down at the front, and Dongfeng and Vestas Racing are going to be charging in from behind. However, from this moment here, going forward to the finish, the tide is going to be pushing with them all the way. And so it's going to be a matter of staying in good breeze. They're sailing upwind with potentially 4 knots of current behind them. That means that you've got wind against tide. It's going to get a little bit lumpy, but there shouldn't be any problems in terms of speed towards the finish.
But all these problems with the tide, all these problems with the wind, does mean that the ETAs are uncertain. The race experts here behind us have been beavering away with all the numbers and monitoring all the data. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the race experts Twitter feed and you will be just as informed as we are as those numbers change. But at the moment, what I can tell you, the current ETAs for the first boat, Brunel, Team Axel Nobel, Dongfeng or Vestas, is going to be somewhere between 2 a.m. UTC and 8 a.m. UTC. Now, that might shift, it might narrow up, but right now, the sailors, well, they're just as hopeful as we are that the last little stretch will be straightforward. But Cardiff is promising nothing but. Team Brunel in the lead at the moment, but with a very slender lead over Team Axel Nobel. And those 2 Dutch boats will be incredibly cautious about what their next moves will be. The scoreboard will depend on it. Dongfeng Race Team in 3rd, Vestas 11th Hour Racing in 4th. Any number of boats could still take the win here in leg 9. We will be next with you for the arrivals as the leg 9 from Newport to Cardiff draws to a close.